she talked to me about how she believes in the power of technology to create positivity. So she, back in '97, received a call from one of her friends. And her friend asked her if she would let everyone know that she was having a premature baby. Then it was just becoming a household name at this point. But instead of making dozens of emotional and time-consuming phone calls, she decided to create a website. That same night, the baby Bridget was born. So was the idea that became CaringBridge. So Sona is a computer science major and mom to 3 sons, all in IT.
That's a geek out.
She's been recognized for her prowess in technology throughout her career. In 2015, the Minneapolis St. Paul Business Journal honored her as top CEO in technology with the Titans of Technology Award. In 2014, the Women's Health Leadership Trust named her one of 35 women leaders in Minnesota healthcare. In 2013, the Minnesota Monthly placed her on a list of 75 most influential people in the cities. And in 2011, she was named one of the most influential women in technology by Fast Company. So she has quite a few accolades besides starting CaringBridge. Please welcome Sona.
Thank you. It's always fun to come and speak at Rotarians. I really enjoy the group. The whole, even now, I have never sung at the start of a meeting though, so that was good. Just by a show of hands, how many people, either yourself or you know someone, that has been diagnosed with cancer, has had a surgery, been in a car accident, a premature baby? Okay, I think I have everybody's hands. Go ahead and put them down. It just goes to show how health journeys and health crises are part of our everyday life. And in fact, every minute in the U.S., just to put some more stats in front of you, every single minute, 3.2 people are diagnosed with cancer, just in the U.S., every minute. Every minute, 1.2 people have a heart attack. Every minute, there are 100 surgeries happening. Every minute, there's 19 car accidents. And 1 out of 10 babies are born prematurely. These are moments where your life turns on a dime. And sometimes the only thing you can control is that communication. And being able to bring your families together, your loved ones, the community of support, is one of the most important things that you can do when your life turns on a dime. When someone you love, life turns on a dime. And like Grant mentioned, that's what happened to me 19 years ago. So 1997, I always like to pause and have people think back of what they were doing in 1997, especially around the technology they were using in 1997. And think about everything that's happened since then. So 1997, 2 good friends of mine, Joanne and Darren, like Grant mentioned, were isolated in a hospital because they were midterm through a pregnancy, and the mom, Joanne, developed a very serious condition. And as I asked what I could do to help, they said, call everybody, let them know what's going on. And I did actually make 2 phone calls. Each one of them were about 45 minutes long. They actually thought Joanne had died. I ended up consoling them, and I thought there's got to be a better way. And in the 90s, I was lucky enough to have a consulting company that was doing webpage design. So finally, the light bulb went off, and I thought, I'm going to do what I already know. I'm going to create a website. And the same night baby Bridget was born, that first CaringBridge site was born. And it instantly eased the burden of letting people know what's going on. But the wow was how people were connected. Bridget's life was a short 9 days. But that community was brought together. And it was one of the most meaningful and humbling experiences I had ever had. And the thought that technology, being a computer science major, using technology to have such a impactful, bringing people's hearts behind the keyboards together, was just something that touched my soul. And I thought, this needs to be something that anyone going through a health journey needs to be able to bring their community together. And so I became a little obsessed. And within just a few weeks, I actually launched CaringBridge, where anyone could come and create their own website. Now fast forward nearly 20 years from 1997, every 7 minutes a new CaringBridge site is created, which is a great impact. In the last 12 months, 35 million people have connected on CaringBridge. But that's still a lot of opportunity. I mentioned every minute, 3.2 people are diagnosed just with cancer. And I know the theme for this year, for this chapter, is Twin Cities 2025, is that correct? What's happening in 10 years? And so I wanted to think about, where's CaringBridge going to be in 10 years, and what do we want to do in 10 years? And one thing I've had opportunities to do in the last few months is actually done a couple of TED Talks, just TEDx Talks, but they're fun to be able to do. And I talk about the impact of technology, especially what I call social technology. And as I looked over the eras, I looked way back, and we've had changes in technology, but we've had decades to get used to them. For example, the telegraph back in the late 1800s to the first telephone was decades. But just within the last decade, the last 10 years, the amount of technology that has increased as far how we can communicate and connect has just exploded. In past decades, we had almost a generation to get used to how we're able to use technology to connect. But just in the last decade, we've had all this compressed. And I think we're still stumbling to keep up with the idea of how can we use this great ability to connect in such a positive way. And CaringBridge, which has started since 1997, just shows me every day how positive it is for us to be able to be brought together. And I see that nothing but continuing. It blows my mind to think about where we will be just in 10 years about our ability to connect. And I think it will be a strengthening for us, not only as a society, but as individuals, that we're able to bring people together when we need it most. When we're jolted out of our normal lives with these diagnoses, with these accidents, walking across the street in LA. And there's a healing power to this ability to bring people together, your loved ones together. And I've seen it firsthand over the last 20 years, how the healing impact of being able to bring a community together really lifts up not only that person that's going through the cancer treatment, certainly their caregiver, but the entire community is really rallying and being brought up. And in fact, even though I know that, amazing enough, the healthcare and people, I always want evidence-based research. So I started looking for research around this idea of social connectedness, how CaringBridge actually has a healing impact on anyone that's going through a health journey. And there's actually a growing body of research that continues to come up. One of my first ones I found was in 2002, so quite a while ago, and it was Robert Wood Johnson's, and they did a research around what are the top things around healthy outcomes, and they came up with 4 categories. One was your physical environment. That has a 10% impact on your health. Second was your access to clinical care. That's 20% if you have access to clinical care. 30% is based on your own health behaviors. Exercise, smoking, meeting with others. But a solid 40%, highest of all of them, is social support and social connectedness. In fact, other research shows that if you're socially isolated, it almost has the same effect as smoking 16 cigarettes a day. So being socially connected, having social support, has a lot of research and a lot of understanding behind it. And in fact, we just started a partnership with the University of Minnesota, the Center of Spirituality and Healing, to be able to provide some evidence-based research that speaks to the healing impact that CaringBridge has as people are going through their health journeys. And that will lend itself to be able to make it even more important for people to use CaringBridge, to be the first place people turn when they're going through a health journey, to have it be prescribed as part of something that you do when you're going through that health journey, when you get that diagnosis, when you're having that surgery. And another barrier that has really been interesting to watch over the last 20 years has been, there's sometimes a hesitation of creating a CaringBridge site because many people feel you only have a CaringBridge site if it's something you can't bounce back from. Where just the opposite is true. You need to immediately control your communication and rally your friends and families around that support. Not only does it help the patient, the caregiver, but it helps that whole community to know that they can be there. Even if it's as simple as a visit to a CaringBridge website. I mentioned every 7 minutes a new CaringBridge site is created. Some other wonderful numbers is just earlier this year, we passed our 2 billionth visit at CaringBridge. That's billion with a B. And I think of that 2 billion acts of love, hope, compassion. That's 2 billion people that are connecting to each other, lifting each other up. CaringBridge's mission is to amplify love, hope, and compassion in the world, making each health journey easier. And we strive to do that every day. I think about how quick can we get to that 3 billionth mark. Hopefully it's even within those 10 years. I remember we got to 1 billion, I can't remember exactly when it was, but it seemed to take forever. And all of a sudden the 2 billionth, it almost snuck up on us. I was looking at the stats at the end of last year, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to hit 2 billion, probably on February. So this idea of being able to bring people together is so important. Another thing about CaringBridge that is unique is when in the late 1990s, for those of you who remember the great 90s, revenue structure on the internet in the late 90s is the same as it was today. The number one way to get revenue is you sell ads, you sell data, you manipulate content. And I knew that couldn't be what CaringBridge was. When people are using CaringBridge, they need to be in a protected state. They're more vulnerable. So what kind of model could be supporting CaringBridge so that it can last decades? And as I was pondering this, my background in computer science and consulting is fairly entrepreneurial, so I put on my financial management hat. I wrote a business plan, and as I was pondering this, an amazing thing happened is people started to send me donations. Wasn't even a nonprofit yet. And I remember the very first one was about 6 months after CaringBridge launched. I got a check from a woman in California. And in the 90s, you had a lot of personal information on your checks. So her phone number was on her check. So I called her and thanked her for her $100. Said, I just want to let you know we're not a nonprofit. She knew that. She said, you need to understand. CaringBridge allowed me to know my granddaughter. And I would have never known my granddaughter without CaringBridge. And CaringBridge needs to be there for every grandmother. And it was just one of those moments that was a lightning bolt of, wow, this can and should be supported through charitable giving. And it has been a very strong model that 90% of our funding actually comes from people that have or are using CaringBridge, either as a gratitude of what CaringBridge was able to provide them, or an understanding that they want to pay it forward, or just the protection of a unique spot on the internet that is there for everyone that is using it, not being used for manipulation or data or ads. And I've never looked back from that decision of having CaringBridge become a nonprofit. And not only could it be a nonprofit, it should be a nonprofit and thrive on charitable giving. One thing that's so important for CaringBridge is, even though we have a broad impact, we know there's so much more people that need to have CaringBridge as part of their health journey. And we could grow very much organically, very much word of mouth, grassroots. We always have, we always will. I think when you're in that crisis point, you listen to your friends. So please, if you know anyone that is going through a health journey, let them know about CaringBridge. A simple recommendation of go to caringbridge.org, you should start a website, could have a huge impact on their health journey. One of the first things I always ask people when they say, oh, I've had a CaringBridge site is, well, how did you find out about it? And 2 out of 3 people say, oh, my sister told me, a friend told me. etc. So you, each one of you in this room, have the power to give a gift of a huge healing impact to someone you know that's going through a health journey. And of course, the second way each one of you can help is through that philanthropic, charitable support of CaringBridge. It's a gift that really has a huge impact on people's healthy outcomes. And again, 90% of CaringBridge funding is from individuals. We do not have large grants, we do not have government support. It is that individual grassroots support that fuels CaringBridge to have more and more of an impact. So that's a little bit of the story and where I think CaringBridge will go, and in general, the way we will all connect in 2025. And I always like to leave a lot of time, not only for questions, people are always very curious about many things, but I know a couple of you have had your own CaringBridge story. So I really would invite anyone to tell me how they use CaringBridge, any of their stories, or I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.